Located on the west coast of India, Goa is the country's smallest state and known mostly as a resort town popular amongst tourists. During the early 1900s, under the promise of money and adventure, many Goans answered the call of the British to work in their East African colonies. In Uganda, thousands of Goans would settle in Entebbe and the capital city of Kampala. Everything changed in 1971. The leader of the army, General Idi Amin, initiated a coup d'etat against President Milton Obote. On August 4, 1972, General Amin announced that a dream had inspired him to order the expulsion of Asians from Uganda. Amin accused Asians of hoarding all the country's wealth. What was first thought to be a joke soon sank in as 60,000 Pakistanis and Indians, 6,000 of Goan heritage, had 90 days to leave the country. Peter DeMello and his wife Clara were both teachers and second-generation Ugandans. They would have to uproot their 2 children and find solace somewhere else.
When Amin came and decided to get rid of all the Asians, we had to go. And so when anybody mentions the name Amin, I think of an evil man.
Paulie Pereira was an Olympian who competed in field hockey at the Munich Games. Him and his wife Ethel had 2 boys and 2 girls, the youngest of which was 6 months old before the expulsion order.
When he first came to power, everybody seemed to be very happy because they thought they were getting rid of Milton Obote. But as it turned out, he changed and he started favoring his own tribe, and that's where all the trouble started.
Jennifer Dasa was just 13 at the time of the announcement. Born and raised in Kampala, she would be forced to leave the only home she had ever known.
We just heard lots of horrible stories about him. Like I remember people talking about the stuff he used to do, the killings, like with children, and just a lot of different things, like, having bodies thrown into Lake Victoria. You just hear bits and pieces.
When Amin came into power, we knew that there would be trouble. So each Goan family, started sending either their wives and their children away, either to Britain or to India, or some to Australia, some to Canada.
I was with the Uganda team going to Munich for the Olympics in 1972, and we were all at the airport ready to fly down to Munich when Amin decided to call the whole team back to the State House, and he made us sit down in this big conference room, and that's where he told us that the Asians and non-Africans have 90 days to leave Uganda.
At the time of the trouble, we've heard of lots of unfortunate incidences. One was one night the police were on a raid of some sort, and they found this one gentleman. They killed him on the spot, and next day his body was found in a garbage bin, and people picked him up and took him to his home.
I guess when you started hearing the news about the coup and everything, I remember people talking, and I hear my mom and dad speaking. You don't really exactly know when you're that young, but you kind of just hear friends and families talking about maybe you have to move and getting the passport ready, and so I don't think you actually know what's happening till you actually leave.
People were so afraid to leave the country because the government or the soldiers would see them and stop them at the airport, or neighbors would tell on neighbors. So in the dead of night, without telling anybody or just one very close friend, they would catch a plane and get out of the country. And nobody would know for a couple of days where they were, and finally someone would say, yes, they've left the country.
The reason we left is because a lot of the army was going to the homes, taking the girls and getting them married, or marrying them, whatever, raping them and stuff. So my mom was kind of worried because she had 2 girls, and that's the reason we quickly decided to go.
Most of the people had to leave a lot of their possessions behind. Many lost their homes, bank accounts. If they were carrying their gold, that was stripped from them. That's because Idi Amin told his people that the Asians were holding the economy of the country.
We just left everything. We sold all the furniture. The car was given away because you can't take any money out. It didn't matter if you sold it and had. What would you do with the money, right? I had this doll. I'm like, I couldn't take it with me because my mom was like, no, you can't take too much of stuff right in your suitcase. I remember leaving my nice little doll with blonde hair. I'm like, I have to leave it here.
We arranged one morning, after I'd done the interviews with the Canadian embassy, that we were leaving at so and so time. We get on the plane and fly, and we have engine problem. So the guy lands in Chad, and Chad was the worst place for us to land because Chad, the president and Amin were friends. So we said, well, this guy can get us, right? Fortunately, he didn't. Now you fly, there are again engine problems. You land in Paris, stay the night in Paris, leave Paris at 5 o'clock in the morning, straight to Montreal, to the army camp.
We flew all the way across Montreal, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary.
It was a big shock coming to Vancouver for me. So I remember just driving and thinking, wow, it looks so clean in here, like it's so big and it's so wide open, right? It was like it was October, so it was kind of cold too.
We just got one suitcase, and in that suitcase we had all summer clothes. And we had landed here in November. It was the worst winter from we are told. So you can imagine how we froze. And the first place we stayed was a friend's house in the basement. No carpets, no heaters. We slept on the floor on a little mat for a month. No food. Maybe a little lunch or something. I used to work in the post office at night, get home at 2 in the morning and drink ginger ale and chips. That's what I lived on till I decided to move out.
It was hard in the beginning. I remember they were doing different jobs, like whatever they could find. They had to basically do anything just to make some money. Because you're bringing up 4 children. You're in the middle of your age, like 40s, late 40s. It's pretty tough to start all over again.
Now, what do we do about money? What do we do? Where do we go? So we had to go to what they call manpower, Canadian manpower. They gave us $20 a week. I told them, what was happening, and said, okay, we'll put you in this hotel. I had to every day get up, dress up, and go looking for a job. So once a week, go and collect my $20.
In the beginning years, there wasn't fun because it was just go to work, come home, look after the children, cook your dinner, get ready for the next day.
I think it was difficult for the kids, though. Well, they used to get at them because of their color, right? Initially, they were throwing their newspapers in the gutters, their bikes in the gutters.
At that time, like the 70s, they would call you Packy and different kind of words. Coming to Canada, I thought, I was kind of surprised, but I've heard a few people calling you different names.
The only discrimination I can say was that I went for about 30 interviews. Most of them said I had the job. When I got home, they said job was taken.
First came here, I think the most important thing was getting bonded with other Goans, like from Goa, from Africa. So we started like this club, like we have a club here now, right? But I think we were only like 50. We'd go to church on Sunday, and then we'd meet this group like at special occasions like St. Francis Xavier Feast, Christmas, Easter, right? And someone would have it at the home, like at someone's house in the basement. That's how small the club was, right? And now we have like over 300 people in the club.
When others came in, we tried to help them in the same way, show them what forms they have to fill out for different things and where to go for jobs.
A friend of mine spoke to me and he said, I think we've got a number of Goans from Kenya and Uganda here. Let's start a Goan association. So we had a small meeting, and that's where the Canadian Goan Association started.
I'm glad we're here, but I still think of Uganda as my home. I don't know what it is. It's like, I left when I was 13. I think where you're born, you feel that's your home, right? But I mean, I've been here longer, like 40 years now, and I still think about Africa. I buy the African music, we still cook, so you feel like it's still your home.
I struggled, and not to say that I would have been better off had I been in Uganda, financially and otherwise, but I'm happy to be here for the family. Family is going to be happier here than they would be in Uganda, I'm sure. So I'm glad I came here.
Since we were living in this country, it was just natural that we should become citizens of the country.
I think it was most advantageous to me and my family to become a citizen of the country we moved in, and it was a great pleasure to be a Canadian, and I have no regrets.
In some ways it used to be sad, but now having been here for so many years, I think it did us a favor.
Kasongo